Hey, it's Kirk and Kim, and we are here at Good Things Utah.
We are talking today about forgiveness, so stay tuned into the show here. Listen carefully because you know you have areas in your life you need to do better at with forgiveness.
We've had a lot of practice on this one.
Okay, so watch the show.
I'm sorry. I forgive you. But do you really? This is the question we are asking this morning. Why do we all struggle with forgiveness? We have Kirk and Kim Duncan from 3 Key Elements here to help us navigate through the process. And if anyone needs help, it is me. Why do we struggle with forgiveness?
Oh my goodness, we struggle with forgiveness because it's tough. It's tough when we get a lot of emotions inside that are all wrapped around forgiveness. And you know, Kirk and I, we've changed our lives and we've basically dedicated our life to help other people to find answers to these types of things. So that's what we're here.
What's
we're here to help.
Interesting is I know people, I won't say names, but people who have held on to grudges for 5 years, 10 years. They can't even remember why they're holding on to the grudge anymore.
It's true.
But they're hanging on to that grudge, and I feel like it hurts them so much more than anyone else.
Well, and really in that situation, it robs our life. It robs us of our life. And it's just not worth it to hold on to a grudge for any time at all, because we live fully when we forgive.
Well, and that's the first kind of talking point that you guys set. It is we're happier and perform better when we have healthy relationships. Why do we fight against it?
Why do we fight against it?
Well, I think it's because we don't know actually how to forgive.
Yes,
so I think
true.
the fighting against it actually is confusion. And people don't know what to do, so then they just kind of just don't do anything. Now, Kim and I, we hold live events here in Salt Lake City. We've been doing this for 10 years. And every month we hold a live event in front of an audience of 500 to 1,000 people. So we do a lot of coaching and a lot of mentoring. And what we have found is that people don't know the steps of forgiveness. And they think it's just to say, I'm sorry. They think that's it. But one of the very first steps is completely owning the mistake. And really taking responsibility for it.
Admitting that you've made a mistake.
And I think that's such a stumbling block and obstacle for so many of us that's why we can't do it.
And even if there's 2 people involved, there's still something there's still part of it that you have to own yourself. And without taking ownership, you don't gain the power to actually forgive because you're not owning any of it. So the first step is to own and admit to your portion of what happened.
You say you also then have to recognize the damage you have done as a result of those actions.
And most people don't add up the costs of an unforgiven relationship or what happened in that moment. And because you're not adding up the costs, you don't see the damage, and so you don't really do much to really forgive. So
and then it hangs on for 5 and 10 years.
So own it, and then recognize the damage. And then, but the second part, though, is to realize I'm going to repair this. I want to do what it takes to repair this.
What does that look like? That seems like it's the hard one, right? Because it can't always be completely repaired, can it?
And sometimes, like, if we have something that's happening between us and we need to repair it, we can talk, we can sort things out. But maybe I need to go do an act of service for someone else to show I'm a good person. But we can repair it in many ways through service, either to the person that we've harmed or to somebody else that we could actually help.
So what would you suggest in instances where someone, the one who maybe was in the wrong, has apologized, but you aren't ready to forgive them? What would you say to someone who can't forgive that other person?
One of the things that I personally do is I like to journal. When I have a lot of pent up emotions inside and I just feel like I'm not ready to, like, okay, I forgive you, I will go to my pen and paper and I will write out how I feel. And I mean, I unload on paper and just get it all out on paper. And that really helps me to get past that. And another thing I do is I also recognize usually hurt people hurt other people. And so when somebody's hurting, that's when they are, usually causing problems and hurting other people. And I try to remember that one too. That helps me to soften my feelings towards that person.
Kirk, I like that you say you must also tell yourself a new story of hope for that person.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
Part of forgiving others is we need to produce a better story about the person and not hold on to the old story. Because even parents do that to their kids. They keep bringing up the past, or we bring up the past on other people. And as long as we hold on to the past, we're not forgiving. But to literally go, okay, I'm going to see this person this way from this point on.
This takes skill. This takes practice.
It takes a lot of work.
And it takes some time. And I like that you guys are hosting a live webinar. When is the next one? When can people take advantage?
It's the first Monday of each month, and it's a coaching program. You get on, you watch it live. And it's on the next one's the first of. I just finished one this morning.
Yeah, you did one this morning.
Just finished one
Darn it,
today,
we
so the
just
next
missed
one's
it.
the beginning of next month. But
Okay.
our next topic is about forgiveness, and I'm here to help walk through the steps.
3ke.2/GTU. Thanks, guys.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for being here. We're going to work on forgiveness.
Okay, so we just had a great time with Jesse and Allie on Good Things Utah, and we talked about forgiveness, which every single one of us have so much to learn about forgiveness, but we want to share some really great, simple things that will help you to be able to move your relationship forward, because forgiveness equals healthy relationships, and healthy relationships equals an amazing life.
And there's certain parts about forgiveness that we need to really pay attention to. Number one is owning it.
Yeah.
And most of the time we try to look for how we blame somebody else or accuse somebody else for what happened. And we actually need to use some of that time and look at ourselves and go, what part did I play in this experience that just happened?
And be willing to admit that. So many of us, we want to point our fingers at other people, and if we can own it and admit it, that just takes us, it's just the acknowledgement that takes us so much further in our relationships.
Second part is to find the damage that's been caused and start to think about what can I do to repair this and to be able to make this better. And there are lots of different ways you can do that. But remember, service to others is a great way to repair what we may have done to another individual or to the situation. So you look for ways to repair it. And if you don't know what to do, you start asking people for ideas, what you could do to repair what has happened. And then the last one is course correct. To be able to make a plan about what am I going to do different from this point on so that this does not happen again, on your part. You can't control the other person, but those 3 steps: to own it, to repair it, and to course correct. Those are the 3 parts that usually get missed when it comes to forgiveness. And before we go here, I just want to say, remember, you don't wait for the other person to repair the relationship. You take charge. You lead the way of what it takes to repair what had happened.
When Kirk's talking about that, that means, no matter what that other person has done to you or at you or whatever the situation was, it's you have to start first. If we wait around, we could literally be waiting for 10, 15 years.
And maybe never.
Or never.
Maybe never.
Actually, never, exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's super important to just take that responsibility and own it ourselves.
You're going to pay a price. You're going to pay a price until you take action to do something to rectify and repair the situation the best that you can from your point of view. And if we don't do something about it, we're going to continue to pay the price. And why? We get to practice, and don't worry, you don't have to wait too long before you have somebody to forgive. It's usually a daily or a weekly occurrence for that
usually
to happen.
multiple things during a day that we get to forgive. Exactly. And
Yes,
we're
always
working on
practice.
it. We're always getting better at it. One of the things, Kirk, I wanted to bring up one more time before we end is that you mentioned that I thought was just super important. Actually, Allie mentioned it about you, and she said that you need to have a new picture of that person, a new story. I think we should kind of go into that a little
bit. If you're struggling forgiving somebody else, it's usually because you're holding on to the image or the story of what happened and what went wrong.
And usually it's a very negative image of that person, and you pick apart and think of only the things that bother you about that person.
So to move forward and to let go, but not to forget. We always want to learn from our lessons so we don't get hurt again.
Let the experience go, but learn the lesson.
To change the story we have about the person. And that's not an immediate thing you can do. It takes time to let time
practice
and healing to go by. And when healing starts to move forward, you can start to create a new image of that person, of a new story of where that person is going in their life. So you think better of them.
And the story, that image, it may not match the current picture that you see in your mind or the actual real person. It may not match that. But what I've done is as I think of this new story, this new picture, this new image, it really helps me to hold that person in a different space, and I'm sending a different message to that person, and I really feel that they capture that message.
You're gonna make up a story anyway about people, and some of it's gonna have distortions, and so you might as well make up a better story. The person who has better stories has a better life.
And when you have terrible stories, you got a terrible life.
Yeah.
So better stories, better life. And so find someone today to forgive and take some action. Don't wait for them to do the first step. You take the first step and find ways to repair and rectify what has happened.
So one more time, the 3 things, Kirk.
Own it, repair it, and course correct.
Yes.
Okay?
And that will change your life.